Our country is full of political hoodlums. And I can say that authoritatively. A lot of political hoodlums and political entrepreneurs that competitive politics to them is a business and not a medium for setting up governance structures and systems for the country. And so they'll do anything possible within their means to ensure that their bread is buttered. And that is what leads to, when we were driving here, we were having a conversation with my friends we came with, and I was telling them that Kenyans are so gullible to an extent that we believe whatever comes along the way. If you talk about credibility today, even without talking about Ruto, there isn't any other credible political leader that remains. Sifuna is the worst. He's a personal friend. We still share groups. But he knows if he's watching me, that I can tell that he's the worst of the pretenders we have. Because he knows that within Raila Odinga's quarters, he still served his master William Ruto, while Raila was still alive. And I asked a question. Well, some of us would ask ourselves critical questions. Why, when Raila Odinga was making his appointments into the government, he appointed all the senior leaders of the party, including the deputy to Sifuna, but left Sifuna? Because take away Raila Odinga was the party leader. Joho was a deputy party leader. He got a cabinet position. The other party leader was the Kisii governor, so he's a governor, he didn't need appointment. Oparanya was the deputy party leader, he was appointed. The chair of the party was appointed into cabinet. You check through up to including the chair of the electoral commission was appointed into the cabinet. A school, who is the minister for East African Community, was the chair of ODM electors body. And deputy to Sifuna, Dr. Agnes Zani, was appointed the chair of Coin 10, that is the 10-point agenda. So you see, everybody around Sifuna was given positions except Sifuna. I mean, even if it were you, you'd definitely be very bitter. The question you need to ask yourself is, why not him? And I'll let you judge that. And so there's a lot of hypocrisy within both the government structures. I would not absolve the government from this hypocrisy. But within the government system, there's a lot of hypocrisy. But also there resides a heavy hypocrisy within the opposition. Completely. Because if I asked some of those people, truly, why would you oppose? I asked my brothers from Central Kenya, we had a conversation even yesterday, and I asked some of them when we were talking, and I told them, at what point did Ruto become wicked? And this was their answer. He said he killed the Gen Zs. And I'm like, when? In 2004, June. I said, okay, fine. Let's go back. In 2014, June. I said, let's go back to 2013. How many were killed by the same government, led by Rigathi, when he would drive into his office at 6 a.m. in the morning and give instructions and call the police chiefs when we were protesting against his government, Ruto's government, with Rigathi? I hope you can remember the story. Before that must have happened before you moved.
No, I know all that. I mean,
so, and I asked them, and that time they clapped as people were being murdered, and so many young people were killed, and they were clapping. And then I said, so now Gen Zs were killed. I'm not saying one death supersedes another, but the question is, the ones that were killed before by the same guys, led by the same man, were they goats or dogs or cows? That's the level of hypocrisy that I am talking about. So one man becomes bad when one of your own is moved out of government, But when your own is overseeing the butchering of others, then that man is good. So we have hypocrisy all over. And the truth is this: if that level of hypocrisy is not handled, then we still have a long way to go. One thing I noted with Raila Odinga is he is one man you'd not go to him and tell him that mzee, unaona sisi kama Wajaluo. If you worked around him, you know that. The people who suffered a lot around Raila Odinga were his community men, the tribesmen. Because he will tell you he belongs to you. So when he gets an opportunity, he first thinks of other communities. But when we come to a place where leadership is based on tribal inclinage, then it leaves a lot to be desired.
So I'm tempted to get into that, but I'll let that go for now. Hopefully we'll have a chance to delve deeper into this in terms of what you said. But your final thoughts as you launch this book to the diaspora. What is your message to the Kenyans in the diaspora? And what do you want those who live in the diaspora to get from this book?
I have always said this: places don't make people. It is people who make places. America did not make Americans. It's Americans that made America. Japan did not make the Japanese. In fact, Japan was a slave to America. It's Japanese that retreated and made Japan. Kenya will not make us. It is us, Kenyans, to make the Kenya we so desire, whether we live therein or we live without it. And I said it before, transforming Kenya and taking it forward progressively requires two main things: attitudinal change and a complete paradigm shift. We must begin to look at our country positively and take responsibility for the dream of that country, knowing exactly what we wanted to achieve. For those of you who have lived in the US, for example, you can see, I love what you told me earlier, and you said one of the things you found in America that you did not find in Kenya is structures that work. These structures are not magical. The structures are consciously and deliberately instituted by people, not angels. And so if that has to work, then we in the diaspora it must be incumbent upon us to support the efforts at home to liberate home by first thinking positively about home. The problem with those of us who are in diaspora is we become too comfortable to an extent that we don't desire to go back home. You may not want to return to Kenya. A lady told me that now they've even started burying themselves here in the US. You may most probably be buried here in the US, but you still left blood trail in Africa, and more so in Kenya. Don't just think about yourself. Let's think about our motherland. Can we have a positive change and support a course that would help realize progressive leadership in our country?